So I'm hanging out in the garden and I'm thinking about how useless a lot of garden advice can be. A lot of people can frame themselves as garden experts and have all the advice for you and have all the answers and tell you exactly what it is that you should be doing. The rain's coming, so I don't really have a lot of time here. A lot of people call themselves experts, and I hope that no one watching this thinks that I'm an expert, because I'm definitely not. And when it comes to gardening, there's not really anything like an expert, because so much gardening advice is so regional. You know, you could be doing something that someone, you know, the next town over told you is going to work perfectly, and you'll fail miserably with it in your yard. And you know, like, if you don't work with what you have, you're just always going to be failing. I've recently discovered back to Eden gardening, and you know, like, there's no magic, right? Like, I know all about forest gardening and permaculture and no-dig gardening, and you know, it's all the same thing. And in a way, I think that it's also exactly the advice that I give too, which is why would you be trying to make something difficult for yourself when you could just do things the easiest way possible? When you stop trying to fight against what your garden naturally wants to do, you instantly clear up so much time and you have so much more success. Like, a perfect example in our garden here is I refuse to go grow celery because I'm just not going to water that much. Like, it needs some crazy amounts of water, and anytime I try to grow it, it's bitter and dried out and disgusting, and I just don't have time to deal with something that's gonna make me pull my hair out, when instead I could plant a tomato plant, which I like even more than celery, and I can have huge success with it. So, you know, a huge amount of gardening is learning the area that you're working with and just experimenting with it. You know, if you plant one thing one year and it does really well, like, try it again. See if it does well again. If it does, it means you found a great crop for your garden. If it doesn't, you know, what was it that you did the year before that caused it to have success? What was it that you did the year that it failed that could have influenced it? This year we've had really bad luck with our zucchinis. We've been getting a ton of powdery mildew all over the entire garden, which is something we don't really deal with very often here because we're so dry. And the funny thing is, we're having it because it's even drier than normal this year. Just having that lack of rain that we've experienced this year has caused a lot of issues in the garden. Some people do have really great advice, but it should be taken with a grain of salt always. You know, if your favorite gardening guru and person who you wish like you could follow their lifestyle exactly is in the UK, but you're in southern United States, then a lot of the advice that they're going to be giving you is just not going to work for your garden. Same as if you're talking to someone who is in Arizona and they're doing a desert garden, you know, their advice is going to be more online with what someone in Texas is doing than what someone in the Pacific Northwest is doing. You just have to work with what you have. A lot of the knowledge that we've gained for our garden has been through research. I like reading. You know, I'm always interested in what other people are doing in their yards, and we're hugely influenced by a lot of the permaculture ideas. We do a no-dig technique that has worked out. Well, then you can't sit if you're going to be noisy.
No, I'm not going to sit.
Okay, then leave. We're hugely influenced by permaculture. We do a no-dig style technique that kind of is me just adapting what I can easily do in the yard out of some of the ideas that I've taken from permaculture. But I mean, permaculture is a perfect example of why, the whole expert idea drives me insane. You can pay all this money and take a permaculture design course, which basically tells you that you need to go do extensive research on local plants and conditions and, everything local to the property that you're doing your design in. If you can take a permaculture course from someone who has been practicing permaculture in your area, amazing. That's going to have a ton of value for you. But, to know that you should grow your garden, grow a forest like a forest is, you only get the aha moment, and then, a lot of the knowledge kind of just is theoretical, not super practical after that point. A lot of what we're trying to offer here is just ideas for what you could do in your yard. I feel like what we can provide as inspiration is just the idea of how much you can do in a small space, and also the fact that the labor involved in it really isn't that big, especially if you set it up with minimizing the labor inputs in the beginning. Things like having irrigation and planting crops that are going to be harvested all together make a big difference for efficiencies. So much of gardening is about experimenting, and I also find that that's what makes it really enjoyable as well too. Every year we always try a handful of new things, and we learn more about the crops that we have grown for years and years. Like Ian and I are still trying to narrow in on the varieties of tomatoes that we want to grow, and I've been growing tomatoes forever, and we also grow like 750 pounds of them every year. So if anyone should know what they want to grow and what they should do in their garden, it should be us. And yet we're still continuing to experiment with that and still learning. I have people ask me all the time, like, oh, you grow tomatoes so well, like, can you tell me what I'm doing wrong? My plants are getting diseased by blight, and there's not really any advice I can offer because that's nothing that I've had to deal with. But if someone was like, oh, I have issues with flea beetle on my eggplants in the spring, then yeah, okay, like maybe I have something to say, because that's something that I have. But when at the same time when I tell people that, they're going like, flea beetle on eggplants, they shouldn't even like eggplants, they should be going for whatever other plant instead. So so much of it is just adapted to your yard. I guess the takeaway that I kind of want to share with you is there is no one way to do something. You can look at someone and they have a perfect garden and they're doing everything that you want your garden to be achieving, but that doesn't mean still that you need to follow their advice exactly. The advice just isn't going to be that easily translated into your yard. If you have a neighbor and they've been gardening for 30 years, then yeah, they'll probably have some pretty good tips for you. But, like people on YouTube who are telling you the way to do things, or bloggers, or, people I engage with on Instagram, like we can just offer ideas. There is no expert. So don't feel intimidated when you see someone saying, this is how things are done, this is the trick. Don't take everything to heart that you hear. Just, have fun with it. I mean, obviously it's frustrating when every single one of your plants dies and you're left with nothing. But, as long as it doesn't die like me, if my entire garden died right now, then I'd be kind of hooped because I only have about 2 weeks before frost. But, worst case scenario, plant some radishes. Those are an easy crop. They have a short period of time to be ready, and, just enjoy what you can get rather than stressing about everything just being perfect all the time. So if you want any other non-expert advice, you know the person to get it from. Hopefully you'll join along with us. And if you want some of my just super basic just quick tips. I have a playlist of those that I've kind of been putting together. You know, everyone has to start somewhere, and I understand that not everyone has grown anything before. So, you know, seeing those experts is going to be really important because it's going to give you somewhere to start from. But, you know, I just want everyone to know that gardening's supposed to be enjoyable, you know, like living like this is supposed to be like about decreasing your stress, not increasing it. So just have fun with it.